How are you? Do you want some treats? Do you want some treats? How are you doing? What's going on? Look what I got for you. Look what I've got. Look what I've got. Look. Try that? You want to try that? What's going on with this little guy?
Suzanne? That's the lymphocytic leukemia cat.
Oh. Hanging in?
Hanging in there. And
He's eating?
Eats like a champ.
She's so tiny. I thought she was young.
No, she's actually an older cat. This is Suzanne Smith. That is actually a cat that was rescued in April of 2008. Leo. It doesn't have where he got her, but when she came in, she was actually pregnant and gave birth the very next day to 6 kittens. She's led a long life here. She's now 17 years old. She led a pretty unremarkable initial life, which they normally do. Normal lab works and dentals. She did have problems with allergic conjunctivitis, which required ongoing treatment. Had a bout of giardia, diarrhea when she was younger. The allergies in her eyes kind of became more systemic, developing a systemic eosinophilic dermatitis as she got older. And we were able to treat that and keep it under control pretty well. She became hypothyroid in September of 2022, which is also controllable with medication. She also developed a transitory diabetes from the time period of 2019 to 2023. Transitory diabetes is not uncommon in cats, and we don't know the full mechanism involved there, but generally they are cats that have some sort of an allergic condition under treatment, usually with some sort of corticosteroids. Whether the steroids induce the diabetes and then it gets under control by the cat, or it's some sort of an immune-mediated response, we're not exactly sure. But she did lose her dependence on insulin in 2023. But also in 2023, she developed a very severe chronic diarrhea. That began in April of 2023. At that time, she was hospitalized and ultimately diagnosed with GI lymphoma. We've been keeping her on hospice care here since that time, supportive and palliative care. We don't feel like that we can ever truly cure GI lymphoma, but we can keep it under control, and I feel like we've been doing that well with her for some time. The problem that we're getting into is that the GI tract is losing the ability to absorb calories, and though we're propping up her appetite, she's not absorbing the calories that she's eating. At this point, I feel that Suzanne Smith's time here is probably limited, but she still is interactive with the caregivers, and she does want to eat. So to that end, we're going to try to give her ongoing supportive care for a while longer. And that's the story on Suzanne Smith.
My Suzanne. Suzanne was here 16 years. Now here's the thing. When I rescued her, I did a big colony rescue. And luckily, I got them in the spring, before they had their litters. They were all pregnant. That one little batch of cats that I rescued was a lot more than a batch, a couple dozen. But it ended up, we kept a chart on the wall, on the blackboard rather, on the wall, and it said, "This is how many offspring. This is how many offspring." So the little group of cats that I rescued were a total of 84 cats when you count the kittens that they had here. In fact, there was one cat that we later called Mama Bear, and had a snaggle tooth and a hair lip. I had rescued her. She was the last one I rescued in that colony in the desert. And it's like 2 hours away, 3 hours away, whatever it was. I come here, and the first thing we do checked them over, and is she pregnant? She's pregnant. Most of them are pregnant, and no, she has milk. She has milk. Now I got to drive all the way back and let her go. I'll never get her again. So I had to let her go to get to her kids, and she made an arc that was about a mile. She was incredible. And I thought, well, that's it. I could never find her again. And about 3-4 years later, I have more cats, and I'm rescuing. And there's this one cat who's about 100 feet away, sees me, and runs. What the heck? And for like a year, maybe longer, I'm rescuing cats, and every time this cat sees me, she runs. What's with this cat? And it took a long time to get her, and it was a really separate kind of rescue. I'd have to talk about some other time, because this is about Suzanne. Suzanne was in that cluster of pregnant cats. And Mama Bear recognized me. I put a towel over my head. Everything that I did, she spotted me and ran. What the heck is it? Then when I finally got her, I realized she was the cat that was released, the cat that I had to take back and release her. So she knew me well. And she had to run, and her kids were no doubt part of the colony now that I was rescuing. So in fact, they were. And then she had more kittens during the rescue. So I now had Mama Bear and all of her kids together, except the ones we hand raised. We raised a few litters ourselves. They were too young, and we kept them. They were so special. We kept them in a separate place. They're so friendly. But Mama Bear was from that litter. So Suzanne, black cat, so Mama Bear was a tabby, but Suzanne was in that cluster that we brought in. The day after I brought her in at night. The next morning, 6 kittens. She had 6 kittens. So all those kittens grew up hand-raised here. Hand-raised meaning they're not really hand-raised. That's when you put a tube in them and you put bottles. She took care of them, but we handled them. We handled them from birth. So when when the kitten gets handled, they grow up friendly. Suzanne herself tamed down over the years, and she was 17 finally. But she was so friendly, and if you see her, man, I'd come in, what's wrong with Suzanne? Because she's losing weight. Well, that's a bad sign. When they start losing weight, and she's eating, she loves to eat, so I brought her special treats and freeze-dried rabbit and all kinds of stuff. And she loved to eat, and she loved to get petted. So as soon as you pet her, she starts rubbing all over you, and she eats and eats. So about a week ago, Dr. Brown called me on a Friday night, and he said, I'm worried about losing her. She's down to 4.5 pounds. She used to be 10. And I says, well, is it time? Well, I think it is, because she's, so technically, on paper, yeah. But I made a case for her and said, look, she loves to get petted. As long as she's petting and eating, she's going to crash, and maybe soon. But the fact is, she's not ready to go now. So medical advice was correct on one hand, but on the other hand, twice I walked out of the hospital and signed the papers against medical advice, because I know me better than they do, So I had to do that, and for the next almost week, Suzanne ate and got petted. And just one night after petting and eating, the guy stays here. One of them stays here till like 2 a.m. She's fine. Well, they came in at 7 the next morning, and she had passed away during the night in her sleep. So on one hand, that's kind of nice. That she did it on her own terms. And if there were a struggle, you'd say, well, I was stupid, And like sometime with euthanasia, is it time? Is this the moment? It's close. Is this the moment? So there are a lot of things to look for, but I always say it's better to be an hour early than an hour late, because sometimes when you're late, you wish you did it an hour earlier. But in this case, she passed away in her sleep. But again, here's the cat, 17 years. She had her life here. Her kittens all grew up here. Everything, you know, she's older. She didn't look at, if you look at her pictures, look at her photos, she didn't look old, you know, but she is, and you can tell how skinny she was. She had GI lymphoma, and they don't come out of that. And there's nothing to do. Nothing is going to affect it. So, poor Suzanne. And I come in, I'm looking for her in the cage. She's not there. So, till next time.